Great. So thank you for anybody who's attending this or viewing this at a later date. That means to me that you are interested in potentially becoming a CPSM. And essentially what this introductory session is going to provide you is some information on the testing process, what to expect, and things that you can do to prepare adequately for the exam. And so in this session, we're going to cover why you should become a CPSM. We're going to talk about the benefits of becoming a CPSM. Additionally, go over some general applications, some information process, and some preparations as well. For those of you who are on the call, just to let you know, I've muted all the microphones for now, and I'll just take questions at the end, just for the sake of the fact that this is also a recording that people will refer to later. So moving forward here, so why CPSM? So this is a bunch of text that the SMPS National has on their website. So essentially, you know, it's joining a group of distinguished professionals with a commitment to excellence in marketing communications for professional services. But really, why should you get your CPSM? Well, you know, they cite the first three on the national website as an improved ability to compete in the job market, enhanced credibility, and also increased compensation and benefits. It's an additional thing that you can market yourself with, and it also will help you deepen your understanding and become a better professional services marketer through understanding the core concepts. Now, the last two are ones that I added, and I think that, like I was just saying, the increased skills of practice is a huge aspect of this. Using the Markendium books to study will also, I think, bring to light a lot of good ideas that you can bring forward to your current job or future jobs. And additionally, you can use those as a roadmap to get there and bring those ideas forward to management and your team. Also, there's the camaraderie with the fellow CPSMs. You know, Seattle chapter is one of the largest, and we also have the benefit of having quite a lot of CPSMs certified. And what that allows us to do is, you know, have that informal network. And right now it's 24 or 25 CPSMs. And so, you know, they're a resource to you, and, you know, they represent all areas from architecture to engineering to construction. And there's a lot of knowledge there that you can access then through that. Also, once you pass your CPSM, you are entered, or you gain access to the CPSM portion of the website, the mysmps.org website, which allows you to then view a lot of different discussions or materials that are posted there by CPSMs around the country. So going into some general information for some eligibility for taking the exam, you have to meet the following criteria, and this is verified via the testing center, the Professional Testing Institute. So they will ask you to submit your graduation, like your transcript or diploma. They'll ask you to submit your, work experience. I don't think that they actually call references for work or things like that. But again, I'd make sure that you meet this criteria before you sit for the exam, just to make sure that they don't reject it and then you lose that $240 or $245 application fee. So it's a bachelor degree or higher in 4 years in the AEC professional services marketing industry. Again, I think that there is some sort of flexibility of what capacity that is in. For example, if you're working with a furniture dealer that works within the industry, that I think would be applicable. Associate's degree plus 6 years, or without a degree, 8 years of experience is what they're looking for. Also, you have to abide by the code of ethics. You basically will check that box when you take the exam, and that's pretty straightforward. So the application process. So it's administered by the Professional Testing Corporation. There is a website in which you can see their centers and their details about what their organization is about. Essentially, you complete the online application, upload the documentation, and you pay for the fee. Once you're approved as meeting the qualifications, you have 1 year to test for the exam. So there is flexibility then. And also it takes, I think they say, between up to 2 weeks to get approved. So if you apply and you're looking to test within the next month, for example, you'd want to do it early, just knowing that then you have a year to do it. You know, you don't want to be doing that at the last minute. So as I alluded to earlier, there is a $245 application fee that is non-refundable. So, you know, make sure that your credentials are in line and do the application. Also, the exam fee is $275, and retests are $275 each if necessary. But we all know that you're going to be very successful your first time because you'll prepare well, and the retest fees are non-applicable to you. But SMPS Seattle has made a commitment to continuing education for our members. And so at this time, there's a $275 scholarship for the next 10 people who pass the exam, one of which was just Bill Taylor, so there's technically 9 left. And so once you get your successful score, you'll email me your score report, your receipt, and fill out the reimbursal form that I'll give you, and the chapter will mail your check. So this, if you're at a firm who might not necessarily understand the value of this or might not want to pay for it, at least fully, because they want you to have some skin in the game, this is a great opportunity for you to do it now and in the near term. I will also suggest, though, that you do act quickly on preparing and studying, because we have been doing study sessions for about, 4 or 5 months now. And so there are a group of about 6 or so others who are currently in the testing mode in the next few months. So we want to make sure that, if you're going to take advantage of this, that you put it probably within the next 6-month time frame. So continuing on here, test administration. So in our area, you can take it in Bellevue, Everett, Federal Way, Tacoma, and Olympia. The good part about this exam, as compared to other professional exams, is you could take it any day you want. There's basically an 8 o'clock sitting time or a 1 o'clock sitting time. Whereas other exams say, you can only do it within a 2-week period, each quarter. Literally any day works for you. So whenever you think you're prepared and ready, that is the time to do it. So they have a tutorial on how to use their testing format. If you've taken any standardized tests at one of these centers, it's pretty straightforward and the same. But if you're not familiar with the software and it's been a long time since you've tested, it's a great chance for you to be able to go in and see what to expect. I suggest, for example, flagging questions to come back to, and so it shows you how to use the software in that way, and that's available on the testing center's website. You need essentially a 75% score to pass out of 150 questions. I believe that comes out to, I think, like 112-ish. They don't reveal you, they give you a total score at the end of it, and they give you each domain, how you scored on each domain, but you don't ever know which ones you got right or which ones you got wrong. So there is some ambiguity in regards to what is passing and what is not. I do believe they also take out questions that if a lot of people get wrong, they just say this was a bad question. So there is some of that happening as well. So that's kind of why they keep it a little bit more in the gray. But as a straightforward exam, you have 3 hours to take it. I don't know many people who have taken it that take the full 3 hours, although it is a tricky exam. So it is important that you prepare well for it. So how do you prepare for it? Well, the Markendium is the #1 resource that you can use. We have 3 sets available for checkout. Currently, all 3 are checked out, but as those cycle back in, we will make sure to make it available. Also, some of those who have them rented have been gracious enough to offer to split sets or study with someone to be able to share those resources. So if you are able or interested, rather, in using those to study, please let me know. Don't hesitate to email, and we can coordinate a loaner set for you. Also suggesting using past study guides and practice exams. The best thing you can do for preparing for this exam, aside from reading the book, is do a lot of repetition on the questions, because the questions can be tricky, and we will go through some of them shortly. But the best thing that you can do is just do the practice exams and study guides. The current study guide, version 3.1, is available for purchase on SMPS National site. I believe it's around $35 or something similar to that. It's very useful. I think that would be a good investment. However, if you don't want to or cannot spend that money, you can use the old test exam questions that I've made available via the box download. If you are listening to this for the first time and do not have access to those yet, please email me and I'll make sure that you have all the materials that are available. Also, Quizlet is an online web platform, and someone has posted CPSM flashcards and quiz questions on there. So if you search SMPS CPSM, you will be able to see a bunch of pre-made digital flashcards that you can use via an Android or iTunes app, or on your desktop computer. We have a few CPSMs who've taken the exam previously that have spoken to the study groups, for example, Aaron and Melanie, who really mentioned and encouraged people to make flashcards on their own. I suggest this also as a very viable and effective way of studying, especially if you're using one of the loaner sets of the Markendium and you can't mark up and highlight the text. It might be good to write those key points down on flashcards, so then you can use those then to study those important things. And then as a chapter, we offer a wide array of ways to study with people. So there's a monthly study group. The next one's on March 8th at noon. It's very similar to this, where we talk and run through practice questions and do so at the lunch hour. So hopefully, if you want to grab your salad and go to your desk and join us, that would be fantastic. If not, you want to do something more interactive and in person, we have quarterly study groups. So the next one's going to be April 24th. And those take place downtown Seattle. The first one was at PCS. The second one was at Arup. And we have yet to determine the location of the next one. If you would like to host, please let me know, and we would love to be able to host at your office. But it has light snacks and refreshments, and we go through and play games and learn the questions in a very interactive manner. So now let's talk about the exam content and what to expect on it. So the way that the CPSM exam is broken down is into 6 domains. So there's market research, planning, client business development, proposals, promotional activity, and management. These are the percentages that they say are represented on the exam. Now, please note that while you're taking the exam, it's not going to tell you what domain the question's from, right? So the breakdown of all of the questions is represented in the following way, but the questions are just going to be general questions. So the way that the Markendium and the content is structured is it's structured from kind of, as I call it, the big buckets to the small buckets, right? So your research, domain 1, is going to be very informative come domain 2 when you use that research to plan. And then 1 and 2 are represented in domain 3 with client and business development, because obviously you're going to want to develop clients and business that represent your company's identified goals and objectives and strategic plan. That was handled in the earlier domains. And so that kind of reverberates through the 6 domains. So kind of think of that as the funnel or the inverted pyramid, as well as another way to kind of think of how they structure the content, right? So don't feel alarmed if, for example, you didn't start at domain 1 and the next sessions for domain 3 and 4. It's completely fine. I know people who start with their strongest domain first because they write a lot of proposals for their company. I also know people who have started with the thing that they knew the least because they said, okay, I know if I can handle this tough stuff, by the time I get to, for example, promotional management, I'm going to be great. because I got the tough stuff done first. So there's no right or wrong way to attack it, but I just think the repetition and setting a commitment to study is the most important thing. The national chapter, I believe, or maybe it's another chapter, I'm going to just say Florida, just because they had said that it's recommended that you study 5 to 6 hours a week for 13 weeks. That is the prescribed amount that you are expected to study to be able to, no problem, pass the CPSM exam. I mentioned that, so that's a barometer for the work that you do kind of on your own. Obviously, you can take the exam in much less time if you really cram and do a lot more. You could also stretch it out. But the thing that I want to reiterate is when you feel you're ready, schedule it and take it. Don't delay it because you think, oh, well, I can continue to do more and more and more. Because the exam, it's not a memorization exam. The exam is based off of concepts and principles that you can't memorize. And so once you feel like you have a good enough grasp of the concepts, you're going to be good enough to test because there's not additional absorption that you can potentially have. And so you can only hurt yourself if you maybe lose some of that kind of momentum that you had going in, right? So with that in mind, I wanted to keep this session short so then people who do view it recorded can just have that quick overview. But then also, you can refer back to this and know that hopefully I've answered these key questions about, where is the test administered, when's it available, all that sort of stuff. That said, I want to go through some practice domain questions and just kind of give you a scope of what to expect, and then also kind of what this question is really asking and a way that you can potentially further inform the beginning of your study plan, if you will. So here's a sample question that you would find in Domain 1. And remember, Domain 1 is marketing research. And so the question is, primary research is, and it gives 4 answers. Every question is going to give 4 options. It's all multiple choice. And there's never an all of the above or a none of the above. You'll never see that on the exam. So it's always you have to pick the right answer. Some questions you have to pick the most correct answer. And that is the way you figure out what they're actually looking for. And we'll go through one of those later. This question, however, is a straight up definition from the back of the Domain 1 textbook. And primary research is the correct answer. C, original research that you conduct or hire someone to conduct. Domain 1 talks a lot about incorporating primary and secondary research into your marketing planning and research, if you will. Secondary research is research that's conducted by an outside party. So it's something that you purchase. Oh, this is the survey of the Pacific Northwest building trends, that is secondary research. Primary research is something that you yourself take care of, conduct, or initiate. So the correct answer is C. Domain 2, labor or staff accounts or labor or staff costs account for what percentage of a marketing budget? So this is the kind of question that involves a factor figure. There's not a ton of numbers on the exam. It is not heavily weighted towards quantitative information. However, it's important to know the answers to key figures like this that are represented in the Markendium books. I would say if you see percentages for something like this, highlight this or make these a note card because they could be useful because you're going to have to remember what the book said. Because obviously, for example, labor or staff costs might fluctuate based on market or based on the type of work you do or based on a variety of factors. But for this, the answer to this question, the answer is also C. It's 50 to 70%. That's what it states in Domain 2 of Markendium. And one of the things you can do when you're taking the exam, that's a trick for taking any question, is eliminate 2 answers right off the bat that do not correspond. And you just say right away, these are wrong. And so for this question, I can absolutely, after reading the books, eliminate A and B. And the reason why I can do that is because labor is almost always more than half of a pursuit, because it's just, if you think about, the time that it's the salary, insurance, all the benefits, all that sort of stuff, labor is a sizable chunk of anything. And so then you basically get it down to C or D of, is it 50 to 70% or 60 to 80%? And they recommend for a healthy marketing budget that it's between 50 and 70%. Domain 3, cross-selling is defined as providing new services to. So again, 4 options, A, B, C, and D. No all of the aboves, no none of the aboves. And so cross-selling is referred to as giving your services or providing your services to C, an existing client, right? So for Clark Barnes, we would cross-sell our architecture. And if we're going in for an architecture proposal, we're also going to tout our interior design services, right? That's an example of cross-selling. Another example would be if you do construction cost estimating and also do some sustainability lead, like monitoring lead scorecards and do the sustainability registering for the project. That would be an addition of cross-selling, and it's to an existing client, right? It's on that micro level. So domain 4, a sample question for this one would be, before committing substantial company resources to respond to an RFP, a marketing professional must first understand. And let's go through all the potential answers for this question so you know what to expect. The cost of the competitive process. Well, you should know that before you put substantial resources, right? Schedule and staffing requirements, absolutely. I'd want to know the staffing requirements based on that. That's important, okay? The client profile, yeah, I would totally want to know what the client's about before we submit on something. I want to make sure that their culture matches our culture. D, whether the proposed project is a desirable one for the firm. Yeah, of course. I don't think Clark Barnes has any business in K-12 projects. We have no experience in that. So what do I do here? Because there's no all of the above. Well, this is one of those questions that you have to look out for as the most correct answer, right? So they use these identifying words in the questions that are very important to pay attention to. And I suggest that you read the candidate handbook for the SMPS, CPSM exam before you take the test, because what it does is it does a great job laying out what you need to pay attention to in the questions. For example, paying attention to qualifying words like first, before, major, main. These important words will help you on questions like this where it seems like there's a lot of right answers. And jumping to one of these answers before actually looking at those qualifying words or paying attention to what the question's truly asking will cause you to, unfortunately, get that question wrong. So the key word here that I would say for this question is must first understand. Because I think going through all the answers, we've identified that all of these questions are important. And you should be asking and answering these questions in a go, no-go process. But the answer for this question is D, right? Because the first thing is it has to be desirable to the firm. Kind of what I said earlier is we have no business going after K-12 work because we don't have experience in there. We don't have staffing and experts for it. We're going to lose to a lot of other firms that do great work in this area in that type of project. So the first thing we have to understand is whether it's desirable. Then we can start looking at, okay, can we staff it? Can we afford the pursuit and the time and cost that it's going to go into it? Is the client one that we actually really want to work with or work with in the future? So pay attention to those qualifying words and often think to yourself, what is the best or most appropriate answer to this question? Now, domain 5. A firm's corporate identity program can be most widely applied using name recognition, presentation materials, graphic standards, or visual images? Okay, or using what we just learned on the last question, what are the qualifying words, if anything, in this question? I would say most widely are. And most widely is kind of going to give a hint to the answer of this question. The answer to this question is C, and that's graphic standards, because the graphic standards are the most widely, they're the biggest bucket, and they touch the most things in a corporate identity program, right? So if you relate that back to corporate identity, graphic standards, they inform the visual images that you use. They inform how you go out and tell your photographer to capture your finished work or projects. The graphic standards inform presentation materials, how you're responding, your templates. It also informs your name recognition, and your branding, your corporate branding as well. So the answer for this one is C. Now, sample questions for domain 6. Effective coaching and mentoring program will increase a firm's number of principals, billable hours, long-term profitability, short-term profitability. So for this one, think about maybe eliminating 2. Let's just say that for this question. Number of principals, well, that's not going to necessarily, do that. Billable hours, no. You could probably get rid of A and B right off the bat, right? So now let's look at profitability, right? So it's short-term versus long-term. Well, one of the things that the book and Markendium and the program preaches is, creating long-term processes, building for the future, not just doing a short-term quick fix. And long-term profitability is definitely going to be impacted the most by coaching and mentoring, because it's going to foster people to stay, engagement and pride in the work. It's going to increase the effectiveness and just the effectiveness of the team in creating a good, solid product for the client. So the answer here is C as well. And I have to say, I swear, not all the answers on the exam are C or D. So just disregard that right now. It just so happens that these ones I wanted to use to highlight the domain content happen to be C or D, right? So, from the newsletter, maybe you were one of the people who got the SMPS Seattle newsletter saying that this information was going to happen. Maybe you saw those questions and said, hey, I think I know the answer to that. Well, that was just a marketing ploy to get you here to attend this session. So, anyways, but I do owe you answers for those questions, and so I want to give you those now. Marketing ROI is most measurable or most meaningful when measured quarterly, annually, every 5 years, or over a period of 2 to 3 years. So I encourage everyone, and the book does as well, to always constantly measure your marketing efforts, right? It's something that now data is becoming such an important component of our business. Not enough architecture firms or engineering or construction firms currently do it and utilize it to the best of their ability. There's a lot that you can gain by measuring ROI and just compiling all the data on your efforts. That said, the answer is D, over a period of 2 to 3 years, because it's going to tell you the most meaningful and compelling story. A lot of people tend on this one to say annually, and some firms do measure pursuits annually. However, having just, for example, gone through a rebrand of Clark Barnes last October, and having been essentially the rebrand for about a year and I guess it's 4 months now, we've got great data about our perception in the market. I feel very comfortable with where we're at. However, it's not the full picture, because as things go, you have to work hard to stay at a certain place, or you have to continue to evolve and learn. So the period of 2 to 3 years is going to give you the most useful data for understanding marketing ROI. And what I believe is the last question from the newsletter: which of the following is the critical first step in communication planning? So for this one, you have self-analysis, tactical analysis, delivery mechanism selection, development of a clear and compelling message. I'm going to click next, and I hope this shows up. Oh, yes. Awesome. So, this mnemonic at the bottom might help with this question. And this is the kind of tricky question that might come up in the exam. If you don't think that this is tricky, I am thrilled, because that shows that immediately you're able to kind of break out the question in a way that makes sense and puts these in the different compartments. And so that is a big part of success in this exam. So I'm going to first talk about the mnemonic, and then we can come back up to this question. So the mnemonic is risky pirates eat moldy eggs. And I didn't think that up. SMPS National thought that up. We had a now fellow CPSM, Sarah, who took the immersion course at National, come back with that. And what it does is it shows you the order in which things should be done, right? So there's the research stage, there's the planning stage, then there's the execution of your planning. Then you want to measure the ROI on that planning. And then you want to evaluate how that performed. With that evaluation, you can go back into this loop and begin researching and planning and executing the next iteration of a campaign or next pursuit, etc., right? So it's important to understand how these buckets or this funnel works and how research comes before planning, comes before execution. So going back up to the question for this, what is the first step in communication planning? So you have, first of all, you see first, and you're like, okay, so what's the first step, right? And then you look at the bottom and you say, okay, research. All right, so I should be doing an analysis. So what does it sell for tactical analysis, right? So because we know we analyze before we plan. However, this is where it gets tricky, right? A and B are not correct. I'll say that now so we can focus on why we have a correct answer when we decide C or D, right? Is you paid attention to the first step, but you also need to pay attention to the planning, the fact that it's communication planning, right? So the research stage for A and B, even though you want to do analysis first, they don't apply for this question. So the first step in planning is D, develop a clear and compelling message. So when you look at questions and you're trying to figure out the most correct answer and you're trying to figure out exactly what the exam is looking for, pay attention to what bucket you're in. Pay attention to not only those qualifier words, but the place in which this is executed. And that should give you the opportunity to get a great score on the CPSM exam. So, again, study with us for your exam. I'm happy to be a resource for anything you need. My email address is right here, and so please feel free to reach out to join these groups. I'll send you a calendar invite to be able to attend these in person or virtually, or give you any resources or material. Or we've had past, I guess it'd be classmates or things like that. They would come and they'd email me a question, be like, hey, I got this, I saw this question, I can't understand why this question is answer D. And in fact, that is what happened with the last question we just did. And then we, via email, went through it with the buckets, included the other people who were going through the quarterly sessions on that email, so they were able to kind of also see how that thought processes work. So I'm happy to answer questions like that as well. And then, of course, connect with the chapter. There's a lot of resources out there. You might have other CPSMs that are on your roundtables or that you work with. They're happy to give you perspective and help as well, and take advantage to everything that the chapter has to offer. So now, I'm going to give you a warning in case you're chewing or in the car or whatever. I'm going to take everyone off mute for a second here. And feel free, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. If not, I will end the recording after there's no responses. So then, whoever else wants to watch this pre-recorded video can. So coming off mute.
Hi, Brandon.
Yes.
I came to the meeting late. I had another meeting that went quite late. I apologize. Did you just say that there's an opportunity to review the video?
Yes, I have recorded this session. It is currently recording, and I will end the recording after all the questions, and then I will post the link on the SMPS CPSM page on the Seattle chapter's website, and then additionally,
Okay.
I will ask them to email out that link in the next newsletter, and I think that might be the best way to do it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
No problem. All right. With no other questions, thank you all for those of you who were able to make it in at this time, and look forward to helping you in your pursuit. You can do it. You'll do great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brandon.
Bye.